welcome back to my channel. For today's video I decided to watch the 2006 movie Ultraviolet for the first time. Kurt Wimmer directed the film, which starred Milla Jovovich. Wimmer wanted to create a film with a distinct visual style emulating the look of a comic book. However, his vision for the film was unfulfilled, with the film's $30 million budget not seeming to be enough to realize the elaborate special effects necessary to pull off the film. The studio mandated major cuts to the film as well, truncating Wimmer's vision. Jovovich also seemed to be unhappy with the final cut of the film, claiming that Wimmer reneged on his promise to involve her in the editing process. The unrated extended cut version I watched did not restore this original vision. The film was released by Sony Pictures on March 3, 2006 to an overwhelmingly negative critical response and poor box office numbers. The film made just over $31 million off its reported $30 million budget. The film made up for some of its box office failures with a strong home video release. With this brief context laid out, let's review Ultraviolet. The film does follow the general philosophy I expected, with a strong emphasis on the visuals and action of the story, with little time spent developing characters. We get stopgap character archetypes in place of character development. This in itself is not necessarily damning, but the fact that this emphasis on the visuals and action fails so spectacularly is what condemns this film. The film looks so ugly that it's hard to watch. Watching the film can give you a headache. Its visuals are so undercooked and the comic book look is not achieved. The CGI is overused and underdeveloped. The lack of polish on the visual effects leaves them looking incredibly half-baked. This lackluster approach to CGI infects the entire visual landscape of the film. This is reduced even further by the overall bland direction. For a film attempting to be so vibrant and exciting, the film is such a snooze fest. The energy it strives for is not felt. Instead, all the chaotic action feels empty, leaving you to check the runtime to see how much longer is left. Wimmer's approach is derivative of other action and sci-fi films, but fails on such a basic level to emulate what made those films so successful. This film's energy is what falls so flat, and I think that the PG-13 rating is partially responsible. Tons of the action is bloodless. Not only bloodless, but also weightless. There is no impact felt with anything that happens. This is the worst of what is possible within the realm of gun fu, with an approach to the action that leaves everything feeling so empty. An example of this emptiness is a scene at the top of a building where Jovovich's character does nothing but dodge tons of bullets in a painfully boring action set piece. We also have what is supposed to be the final epic fight scene in which Jovovich is killing her way through all the security personnel being executed extremely weakly. There is a way to accomplish PG-13 action scenes that have real weight, but it requires trusting your stunt people to accomplish things on a practical level and utilizing well-choreographed fighting sequences that push the limits of the rating, not simply attempting to dazzle the audience with quick cutting in an up-tempo style in hopes they don't notice that nothing is happening. Jovovich is only used as something pretty to look at, rather than giving her a tangible physical action presence. This is disappointing, as her work in the Resident Evil franchise showcases her relentless work ethic. She shouldn't have to work so hard on a film that quickly moves from one empty stylistically and aesthetically unpleasant set piece to the next. She should be pushed physically, with a demanding role that will showcase her excellent stunt work. Wimmer's direction does not provide that, with the film failing on all levels. The ugly CGI is such a fatal flaw for a movie with the technology so firmly embedded in its DNA. It relies on it to sell the world and the action, instead it just gives you headaches. You can blame the studio, and I'm sure they do shoulder a large burden of the blame, but what we are seeing in this film is a failed, stylistic exercise that falls flat when put up against the excellent popcorn action films of this era. In light of watching this movie, I more acutely appreciate the Resident Evil and Underworld films and their ability to deliver on the action. If you're going to have a super thin story in favor of action and visuals, you better deliver on the action and the visuals. The film fails on all levels, creating an experience that leaves you feeling bored, even though the editing and the pace of the story are told in such a rapid way. In a movie that is this reliant on spectacle, being boring is a cardinal sin, something that even the wonderful Milla Jovovich can't make me forgive. And that's all for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.